Forget everything you thought you knew about video editing. Descript makes video editing possible for everyone. In this single video, I'll take you from total beginner to Descript master. Here's everything we're gonna cover today, starting with setting up a new project. I'm gonna assume you've already set up your Descript account and you're already logged in. And when you do that, you're gonna see this page. This is called your drive view. And as you start creating videos, they're gonna stack up in a list like this. And if you wanna see it in a little bit different view, you can come up to this icon in the top right, click on that, and you get this view where you have a thumbnail of each video. To create our very first project, come up to the new project button in the top right corner, click on that, and then click on video project. And here we are inside of a brand new blank project. I'm now going to familiarize you with the user interface. Starting from the top left corner, this home button will take you back to the drive view that we started with. This hamburger menu right here is going to be all of your settings and different features, help and feedback, things like that you can access. This little check mark right here, it's kind of hard to see. It's a very light gray, but you can see when I hover over it, it says synced. That's letting me know that my project is synced to Descript's cloud. If it's not a check mark, then that means it's not currently synced. It's currently uploading all of my work to the cloud. And that brings up an important point. In Descript, you never have to click a save button. Everything is backing up as you go. Here in the middle, this is the name of our project. So if you click on that, you can click rename, and I can call this beginner to advanced tutorial. And you can see it also updated right here. Moving on, these little icons and this little plus button is who is currently in this project. Currently, it's just me, but if I had any editors I was working with, I could add them to this project using this plus button. Next to that, this comment bubble is how you can communicate with other editors that are in this project. And then there's a publish button. This is how you can send your completed video off to YouTube, off to a course platform, off to a podcast host, wherever you want to put it. Next is this little question mark icon is Descript's Help Center. This is how you can reach out to their support or browse through their help articles. Here on the right side is the properties bar. I'm going to go into each of these icons later in this video. Up here in the top right corner is how you control the app layout. So if your app looks different than mine, you can click on this and you can move it into stacked mode, or side by side is the default, but it'll depend on the dimensions of your window. This darker gray box in the middle is your scene editor. Currently it's blank, but once we start adding video, that's going to get populated. This thing in the top left corner is your aspect ratio. So this is how you can change between landscape for a YouTube video or portrait mode for a TikTok, for example, or make it any other size that you want. Right here is where our transcript is going to end up once we add a video. And this right here is our scene thumbnail. Again, once we have videos added, it's going to start populating, and I'll explain all those as we go. And then on the bottom, this is where our timeline is going to be. You can see our play button, but it's all grayed out right now because we have nothing in here yet. So with that, I'm now going to go into how to import media that we're actually going to edit. There's several ways to bring media into Descript depending on the type of project that you're doing. So for example, if you're bringing in a call from Zoom, there's an import from Zoom button. If you're going to record straight into Descript, there's a record button. But if you're just going to bring something that you've already recorded off of your computer, then there's this big upload file button. You can click on that to browse through your computer like so. Or the easiest way is to find the file on your computer, select it, and drag it into Descript. And it'll all turn blue like this. And it says drop anywhere to transcribe. As soon as I do that, this dialog box pops up. It says it's transcribing, and there's the name of my file. I can select how many speakers are in this project. It's just me, so I'm going to select one. This is in English, so I'm going to leave it on English, and I'm going to hit done. And now I'm going to give this a couple seconds to finish transcribing. And there we go. There's the transcript. The thing that makes Descript unique is you have this transcript where you can edit the entire video off of this. You're going to be somewhat limited, but for instances where you can't edit from the transcript, you can come down to here where it says show timeline, click on that. And this is what most traditional video editors have, where you have timeline, where you have layers, and you can see different elements depicted visually down here. So between these two elements, the transcript and the timeline, this is how we're going to do all of our editing. Now that you know how to import media into Descript, I'm going to show you how to actually record straight into Descript if that's what you wanted to do. So I'm going to click on this next scene button to take me all the way to the end of my video. By the way, this blue bar is called the play bar. So wherever the video is at, where that play bar is, that's what's going to display up here in the scene editor. And if I hit the play button, it's going to start from the play bar. But I'm going to zoom in on my timeline by holding Command on a Mac keyboard or Control on a Windows keyboard and scrolling in with my mouse. I'm going to click to the very end by clicking to this white space after my layer ends. And I'm doing that so that when I start recording, it's going to go on the end of my video instead of just putting it somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to come to the record button right here, click on that, and there's a little preview of me. I can click on this thing right here. I can use these different visual things to make sure I'm centered. There I go. I can use the grid lines to see if I'm on the top third. That looks good. Or I can click it again to just turn it off. Over here on the right side, I see this little bouncy wave telling me that my mic is getting picked up. That's good. And I can select my camera right here, or I can turn it off by clicking on that camera icon. And now it's going to be an audio only recording. Below that, I can do the same thing with the mic. I can mute it if I want. I can change my mic to any of these other options. So if you have an external mic plugged into your computer, this is where you're going to want to select that. And if you're going to share your screen, you're going to do a screen recording while you're talking, this is where you're going to select that. So pretty similar to if you've ever used Zoom or a video calling software, it's the same functionality. Down here, record with rooms. This is how you can do a remote interview. So it's going to give you a link. You can send it to a guest and they can join your call. You can start recording, and then it's going to create a Descript project from your recording. And then when you got all these settings all set how you want, just simply hit the record in Descript button and boom, I'm live, I'm recording. Oh, and I can pause it while I'm going if I want. I can pause it, and then this is going to be the same video. I hit start and it's going to continue the same video until I hit this red button, and that actually stops it. And then it's going to process it. It's just going to take a moment. It's going to add it to my video, and it's going to transcribe it where I can edit it like everything else. And that takes us into the next section, which is transcript and timeline editing. I've had students who have used Descript for years and they've never opened the timeline. So you can do a significant amount of what you need just from up here, just by editing it like a Word doc. So for example, if I wanted to just take a sentence here, like this sentence right there, I can highlight it and just hit delete on my keyboard and it's gone. That is the easiest way to edit and make cuts in Descript. Now, if I come down on the timeline, again, I hit that show timeline button in the bottom left and I get this view. You can see that these sound waves have words above them. These match with the transcript. And if I click somewhere in the transcript, like right before the word this, it moves my playhead. I mentioned the playhead, this gray line right here, turns blue when I click it. That moves my playhead to that point. So these move together, moves there, and it moves on the transcript. These words underlined in blue, that tells me that those are filler words. So words like ums and uhs. Let me scroll down a little bit in here. Right there, an so, very, repeated. It's looking for all those words so I can easily find them and delete them. And there's a tool that will actually do that for me that I'm going to show you in a couple minutes. But in addition to the first way I showed you to delete words, you can also come down here on the timeline, click a word like the word then, and drag it to the left. That's a left click, drag and hold to the left, and it's covering up words. So that's deleting it from the video, and it's also deleting it from the timeline. However, in Descript, nothing is ever truly deleted. You can always restore things that you just did. So the first and easiest way is to just undo it. You can hit Command Z on a Mac keyboard or Control Z on a Windows, and that just undid that change. But let's say that I drag this word so over the word and I want to bring that back. I can put my mouse right here and I get this bracket. And this, if I click and hold and drag with this bracket, it's restoring what I just deleted. And if I do the opposite and I drag to the left, it's deleting it again. It's trimming it. And I can keep going and trim even more words. So you can use these two together, and you might find that you prefer one way or the other. There's no right or wrong. It's just about what's more intuitive to you. You also have other tools at your disposal. For example, there's a bold button where you can bold text, you can italicize it, you can highlight it, and you can even leave comments on it. If you're collaborating with teammates, you can leave comments and you can collaborate on your video together. If there's a misspelling, like right here, Descript actually misspelled its own name, I can highlight it, I can hit correct, and then it gives me this little dialog box where I can just type in Descript the correct way. And if I hit correct, it's just going to correct this one instance. But if I click correct all, notice over here, it found 8 instances where Descript mistranscribed itself. So I can hit back here in the middle, I can hit correct all, and all 8 of those instances are fixed across my entire document. And the transcript, by the way, the use of the transcript is if you add captions, then the captions are going to read off of the transcript. So if you're using captions, it's important that your transcript be accurate. If no one's going to see your transcript, then it might not be important that you spend any time working on fixing up the transcript. Now that you have a basic understanding of the transcript and the timeline, it's time to talk about the AI tools. This is what really makes Descript stand out. If you come up to the top right to this thing that says Underlord, this is where all of your AI tools are going to live. Click on that, and you can see we have different categories here. There's a sound good category, look good, repurpose, publish, and write. I'm going to start by showing you the sound good section. One of the best tools in Descript is this one right here, Studio Sound. Studio Sound will take your terrible audio, your air conditioning noises and your traffic and your dogs barking, and it'll mute all that out so that it sounds like you recorded in a professional studio. So let me go ahead and click on that. And this video was already recorded with a pretty good mic in a pretty good room, the same one I'm recording in right now. So you're not going to hear a huge difference, but the worse your audio is, the better this tool is going to be for you. And it does take a moment to apply. You can see it says applying Studio Sound to, and then the name of my file. And with Studio Sound, the only thing you can do to fine tune it is, first of all, I want to point out, this is their layers property. So with any layer in Descript selected, it doesn't matter what type of layer it is, if it's video, if it's an image, if it's audio, it's all going to be the same principle that you come to this layer button right here. And these are going to be all of the changeable properties for that layer. So for this layer, for my main video layer here, if I come down to audio effects, there is Studio Sound that I applied. And if I click on these little dials right here, these are my effect settings. The only thing I can do with Studio Sound is change the intensity. And it defaults to 100%. And right now it says mixed because it's different levels in different parts of the project. But if I click on it and type in a number like 100, it is now at 100% intensity. And if you want to remove it, you can simply hit this little minus button and that'll remove the effect. If I hit this X, that'll close that box. But Studio Sound has now been applied. Next, I'm going to show you the remove filler word. So we're going to go back to Underlord. Again, Underlord is all of our AI stuff. And right under Studio Sound is remove filler words. Click on that. And it found 10 filler words. And this actually isn't very many for a 20-minute video. Sometimes I've had an hour-long video where I say 600 ums and uhs. And so these are all the instances it found. And if you come over here to the left side on the transcript, you can see if you click on all filler words, this is what it was looking for. It was looking for repeated words, so's, likes, but you knows, etc. And if I want to refine this list, I can unselect all. This is how I usually do it. And I'll just select the so's, likes, and ums, for example. And that lowers my list. Now it's just found 3 words. And you have a couple options here. You can delete it, which will delete the word from the transcript and from the video, or delete and replace with gap. This is the one I recommend. It'll effectively mute the filler word. So it won't mess up your video. It won't make your video choppy. It'll just get rid of the sound of that filler word. Ignore will delete it from the video, but it'll leave it on the transcript. It'll make it light gray to show that you removed it in case you decide you want to bring it back later. And remove from transcript will leave it in the video, but delete it from the transcript. So again, I recommend for most use cases, delete and replace with gap is your best option. And you can hit remove all, and all those filler words are gone. Next, let's go back to Underlord, and we're going to go to add chapters. Click on that. And it says here, divide into chapters and add markers. It asks for a number. Currently it says auto, but I can click in there and I could type 5, for example. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna hit submit. It says Underlord is thinking, and it's already done. And these are the names of the chapters it came up with. Introduction to Descript. And by the way, the video on your screen is the video you're watching right now. So these are the chapters that are relevant to the video I'm editing. And it says editing basics and techniques, advanced editing with AI tools. And to add those to scripts, I simply click on here. And now, if you look over here, there are my chapters that I just added. And if I click on one, it scrolls me to that point in the video. And look how good it did. So in the transcript, I'm saying the first thing we need to do is import our media. And the title that came up for that chapter is Importing and Managing Media. So super valuable tool. And also, when you publish to YouTube, these become your chapters, the timestamped chapters that your viewers can skip around to different parts of the video with. So super handy, the add chapters feature. Hit done to close that. And next I'm going to show you layer properties. So I mentioned this briefly, but any layer in Descript that you click. So if I click on this layer right here, my speaking layer, and then I come over to the layer button on the right side, here are all the properties for that particular layer. At the top, there's a duration box. So right now it's playing at 1x speed, but I could bump that up and make it 3x speed. And now it's going to play super fast. Or I could go to half speed, for example. So you can slow down or speed up anything you want using this duration box. Below that is the audio level. Descript automatically auto levels your audio for you when you bring it in. But if you need to manually change it, you can use this. So when you first bring it in, it's going to be 100%. And if you want to make it quieter, you simply grab this black dot and slide it down. Or if you want to raise the volume, slide it up, just like that. And if you want to completely mute that layer, hit this speaker icon and that'll mute it. And with everything in Descript, there's usually a slider and there's a number. So you can click in there and just type in a number as well. Both ways work. Down here, you have opacity. Since this is a video layer, it has both audio and a visual component. And so as with our audio layer, I can slide this opacity and that's going to make my video start to disappear or reappear as I get closer to 100%. And if I click this eyeball, it's going to hide the entire layer. And you can see all the layers, all the options below it disappeared. I can click on the shut eye to open it and return to 100% opacity. Below this is size and position. So there's an X and Y coordinate for how this video is positioned on the scene editor. And I could type in a number there. So currently the Y coordinate is 540. If I type in 800, notice how it just slid my video down to that position. I can also click the video here and it has a purple border around it. And if I left click and slide it, drag it up, if you notice the numbers were changing as I went. So the position of the video here is related to the numbers here. The next line is your width and height. So right now this video is a 1080p video. So I could type in where it says 1080, I could type in 1500 and it zooms in. And now I'm looking at a much smaller part of my video by making it wider. I'm going to return that to 1080 and there we go. Those will stay linked together. If this is checked, if this has the blue border around it, then these numbers are going to stay proportional so your video doesn't get all messed up. But if you want to unlink it, then you can change the height and width separately. This next one is the rotation of your video. Currently it's at 0 degrees. It's flat. If I type in 45, for example, it twists my video like that, back to 0. And this last one is corner rounding. So if I type in a number like 250, notice my video is starting to turn into sort of an oval. It's softening up the corners. I'm going to turn it to 0 for sharp corners. And if I click this little box right here, these are to control the 4 corners separately. If you click out of it, this will just control all 4 corners at once. This next one, you can add a border by clicking on the plus sign right here. And this will be the color of the border and the width of the border. With any element where you can change the color in Descript, you'll get this pop-up. You'll click on the dot, and then you can slide through this swatch like this to make it red, for example. Or if I want to go to more of a green, I can slide through here, choose green, and do it like that. This eyedropper is to match a color. So maybe you have a specific brand color or a color on your logo. You could find the exact pixel that you want to match, like this blue right here. I could click on that, and now it's going to turn my border blue. You can also type in a hex code and change the opacity. And then below that, it gives you your recently used colors. And hit this X to close out. Below that is Multicam. That's beyond the scope of this video, but this is a way that Descript will automatically change the cameras if you have an interview where you're using multiple cameras. And if you want to go into anything that I'm glossing over, check out the Descript Mastery School. That's my community where I teach you how to master video in the next 90 days. Below that is audio effects. And there's where we have our studio sound. I could toggle it on if I want to add it again. There's ducking. Again, beyond the scope of this video, but a highly useful feature. Check out the Descript Mastery School if you want to learn about that. Visual effects, if you want to change how this video looks, this is where you can do color grading, you can remove your background, you can add blur, things like that can all be done in here. And then animations, if you click on the plus button, this is how you can animate your video. And this is not like adding graphics. This is like moving an element across the screen. Like for example, having text move into the screen, things like that. That is what animation is referring to here. Now it's time to talk about scenes. Scenes are an important thing to understand in Descript. Right now, this whole project is one scene. So right here on the timeline, you can see that there's number 1 and there's a little thumbnail. That's a scene that I'm currently in. Additionally, right here on the left side, there is a thumbnail for my one and only scene. Now, scenes are indicated on the transcript with a /. So right here, before it says introduction to Descript, that slash indicates my scene 1. You always have to have at least one scene. To make a new scene, you can go somewhere else in your project, and let me go to where I'm showing my screen. So let's say I just click right here before the word over, and I type a / on my keyboard, and that created a scene number 2. So now there's a scene number 2 thumbnail, and down here, there's scene number 2. And right now I'm inside of scene 2. So when I say I'm inside of scene 2, I mean that my playhead is after scene 2 and before scene 3, if I had a scene 3. So I'm inside of scene 2. Now I'm inside of scene 1. And you also see that black line right there. That tells me that I'm inside of scene 1. Now, the reason that's important is scenes are how you split up your project. You can think of them like slides on a PowerPoint. So what I mean by that is if I make a change here into scene 1, for example, I zoom in on my video like this, where it's showing just my canvas editor. Watch what happens when I hit play and it switches into scene 2. Over here on the... So as soon as it switched into scene 2, this video played into scene 2, scene 2 was unaffected by the edit I made in scene 1. So scene 2 is still zoomed out. So if I go a little bit further down, I showed you how to make a scene from the transcript. It works the same way from the timeline. If I click down here to move my playhead and I hit /, now I have a scene 3. And inside of scene 3, if I zoomed in to make my face bigger, now it's bigger, but only in scene 3. If I go back to scene 2, it's small again. So scenes are useful anytime that you need to change the property of a layer or multiple layers as your video is progressing. And that leads me into the next thing, which is adding elements. This will all make a little bit more sense once I have a couple elements added to my video. So over here on the right side, there's a button that says elements. Click on that. And the element options are text. You have different types of text that you can add to your video. A placeholder, which is beyond the scope of this video, but check out the Descript Mastery School, where I go into making layouts, which requires using placeholders. And then under basic, you have different shapes. So there's triangles, circles, squares, stars, and then filled in versions of each of those, arrows and lines. And then you have dynamic text, waveforms, progress bars, and different annotations and overlays. For right now, I'm going to add a square. And this is the exact same thing you've been seeing me use this entire video. I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. So it added this square, and right now it's white, so you can't see it. But if I click on this white dot in this menu bar that popped up over that white box, I can change it to red. Does this look familiar? That's what I've used in all of my videos. I can now click anywhere in here to select this box again. It puts that blue line around it with the white dots in the corner when it's selected. I can grab the white dots and I can resize it. So if the thing I'm pointing out is the word name your creation, I can just resize it so it fits nicely around that. I can also make the lines thicker by clicking on this thing that says 10 pixels, and I can type in 15, for example, 25, now it's super thick, and I can just drag it around the screen to reposition it as I need. Now that I've added that, if I look down on the timeline, you see this blue line? That is called a layer. So that layer represents my rectangle. And you can see it says rectangle and it's got a little graphic there as well. I can grab the boundaries of this, the front or back of it, and I can get this bracket and I can make it shorter. And this is going to control where that rectangle starts on my video. Or I can grab the end and drag it closer, and that'll control where the rectangle ends. And so that's adding a shape. As I mentioned, every layer in Descript, if you click on the layer button, since I have my rectangle selected, all of these options right here are going to pertain to the rectangle. So if I want to make other changes, I can go through here and customize it in any way that I want. But let's go back to elements, and I'm going to add a text layer. And these three different types of text are all the same. They're just different starting points. So title is going to be the biggest, subtitle is going to be a little smaller, and text is going to be the smallest. So I'm just going to do subtitle, and you can see it just added it, and it says subtitle. So I'm going to change it to this is my text. And as before, it's white. So if I want to change that, I'll click on this white dot and I'll make it dark red like that. I can change the font, including adding my own font with this little cloud button right here. You can upload your own font if you have a file for that. You can change the weight of it from thin all the way up to black. The size of it, you can type in a number there and make it bigger or smaller. And you can click it and drag it around the screen like so. And if you want to change it, double click, and then you can start typing. You can also change left, right, and center alignment there. And once again, if you go to layer, here are all of your properties for this particular layer, which is your text layer. Now, I want to point out on the timeline, here's the text layer. It says right here, this is my text. And you can see another use of the scene is that when I added it, this applied to the rectangle and the text, when I added it inside of scene 2, it expanded to fill scene 2, but it doesn't overflow into scene 3 or even scene 1. If I wanted to, I can grab the ends and I can do that by extending it into the next scene or into the previous scene. But by default, scenes are how you split up your project. So it'll contain those particular layers until you tell it to expand outside of it. Moving on, let's talk about transitions. It's important to have an understanding of scenes because transitions are what occur between scenes. Right now, since there's no transition, here's my scene 3 where I made myself really zoomed in. And then if I click back, there's scene 2 where I'm zoomed out again. So if I hit play, here's what it looks like. Like that. There is no transition. It just goes immediately from small to zoomed in. I can fix that. If I go into the button right here above layer that says scene, these will be all the properties for the scene. And here you have things like duration, background color. I don't even have a background showing, but if I did, I could change that here. Or transitions. So click on the plus button. And with these transitions, these are how the scene is either going to begin, how it comes in, or how it ends, how it goes out. And with both of these, you have the same options. You have smart transition, fade, blur, etc. I personally like smart transition. It uses AI to decide which transition to use, and it makes it really smooth and seamless. So if I click on, actually in this case, this is how scene 2 is going to end and go into scene 3. So I'm going to click out and I'm going to click smart transition. And now let's hit play and pay attention to the video. So it automatically added, instead of suddenly jumping to me being zoomed in, it did that nice smooth zoom in and it looked a lot more professional. And if I wanted to change that, I could go to these transition settings right here. Again, this is under the scene tab. Click on these settings. You can change the transition here if you want. You can change how long it is. So right now it's doing it in 0.8 of a second, but I could change it to 1.5, for example. Easing, beyond the scope of this video, but this is how quickly that animation happens. And then fade is going to add a fade in or fade out, depending on if it's an in or out, along with that particular transition. So now that I've slowed it down to 1.5, let's see how that looks. There it is, much slower. And if I want to remove it, I can hit this little minus sign and it's gone. But remember, transitions happen between scenes. So if you want to add a transition, add a scene to make it happen. I emphasize that transitions are between scenes because that's as opposed to this next thing I'm about to show you, which is animations. So animations are what happens to objects, to layers. So for example, my text layer here that I already added, if I click on it and then I come to layer on the right side, scroll down, at the very bottom, there's a box that says animation. Click on the plus button. And as we saw with the transitions, you can control how this layer comes in or how it goes out. You can also do a custom one, but those are a little bit more complicated. So if I click on in, I can choose from any of these options: wipe, spin, etc. Let's do spin. As with the transitions, you can control how long this is going to take. It defaults to 0.4 of a second. That's less than half a second. But I'm going to make it 1 full second just to slow it down a little bit. Easing, you can change how many loops. So remember, this is a spin animation, so you can control how many times it loops around. And you can choose if it fades in while it does that. If you want to preview it, you can hit this little play button right here and pay attention to the video. It does that little spin in. Pretty cool. And if I hit this X, that'll cancel it out. And then if I hit the plus button again, still with my layer selected, I go to out and I go to scale. I'm going to hit this play button. Let's watch what this does. So this one it's taking 0.8 of a second. The easing is natural. It's animating by word. So if you notice, each word kind of got sucked away. It kind of disappeared. That's what that means, animate by. As opposed to, you can animate by all, where all the words are going to disappear at once. You do character, where it's going to go away, kind of like a typewriter, like one word at a time. Line, where it's going to do all the line, or paragraph, which it's just a one line thing anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do character, and let's see how this looks. See, that kind of smoothly disappears one character at a time. So those are animations. Next, we're going to talk about layouts. So layouts in Descript are a really important skill. They're a bit more advanced because it takes an understanding of layers and scenes. So if those things aren't clicking yet, I recommend play around with them a bit more in the software, watch that part of the tutorial again, enroll in the Descript Mastery School, and then come back to this and we can talk about layouts. And there's an entire part of the course, in my course, that just goes into layouts. If you come over to a scene, so here I'm still inside of scene 2. I have scene 2 currently selected. If I come to the scene thumbnail for scene 2 and I right click on it, I get this drop down. And if I click copy layout, that's going to take all the properties of this scene. So the zoom level of my background, it's going to take this rectangle and it's going to take this text layer. It's going to copy all of that. And then if I go somewhere else, let me come further down in the video. I'm just going to click into a random spot. I'm going to hit slash. I just created a scene number 4. And then if I come back over here to the thumbnails, I right click on scene 4 and say paste layout. Check it out. It zoomed back out. It added this text layer and it added this rectangle. So all the properties that I copied, it then pasted it into scene number 4. Now here's the really cool thing. This is why I say layouts are so important to learn. If you right click on a layout, you can also save a scene as a new layout, and layouts are like templates. So they're elements that you can use over and over and over again. So if this was going to be, let's pretend that this scene number 4 is an intro to my YouTube videos that I'm going to use on every YouTube video. I could save this as a layout, and forever I can use this in all of my videos in the future, and I never have to make it again. So layouts are an absolutely essential skill for editing fast and consistently. So now that you have the basics of Descript down, you're just scratching the surface, but you still know enough to be dangerous and get your first video out there, it's time to actually publish this thing somewhere. If you come up to the top right corner, there's a big black publish button. Click on that. And there's two tabs here. There's an export tab and there's a publish tab. The distinction here is that export will put your video onto your computer. Publish will send your video somewhere on the internet. So if I go back to export, in addition to exporting as a video, I could also export just the audio from this. I could export it as a GIF, as a timeline, meaning I could put this into another software. I could export just the transcript onto something like a Word doc, or I could export just the subtitles. And with each of these, they have their own set of settings that you can choose. I'm only going to talk about the video ones. Leave this on current composition to export the video that you've been editing. Resolution, always go with max. Why not? Quality, always go to high. That's going to be the audio quality. And then you can set more fine details, more fine settings with your audio. I'm not going to go into that all here, but again, check out the Descript Mastery School. And when you have everything set, hit export. And again, that's to put it onto your computer. If you want to publish this straight to somewhere on the internet, click on the publish button. And this first one that says web link is going to put this video on its own URL. So it'll be a descript.com site that you could share with people. And you can control using this who can see it, if you want it to be found by the public on Google and things like that, or if only the people you give the link can access it, or if you have to explicitly give somebody permission to access it. That's what you can set here. And once again, you can set the resolution. I suggest leave it on max. And then when you're ready, hit publish. And the fastest way to download your video, if you want to put it onto your computer, is to actually hit this button right here. And that will publish it and do the processing on Descript's computers. And then it'll download to your computer. And it's really, really fast. That is the fastest way to get your video onto your computer. If you click on this download or this web link button, you can see there's also YouTube, and then all the rest of these mostly are podcast platforms, with the exception of Google Drive is also on there. So you could post your video to a Google Drive if you link it with your Google account. But for the sake of YouTube, I'll just mention this real quick. You can fill in your title, the description, and there are my timestamps. I mentioned that those add chapters that we added from Underlord, those get added here along with the timestamps. And then once this gets published to YouTube, those will be clickable chapters for your viewer. You can set tags right here, and you can choose whether to make it public, unlisted, or private. When you hit sign into YouTube, it'll ask you to link your Google account, and then you can just hit publish directly to YouTube. If Descript was a book, everything you just learned in this video was chapter 1. So if you want to read the rest of the book and learn how to create the best videos in 25% of the time, check out the Descript Mastery School, my step-by-step blueprint for beginners to master video creation from start to finish.